Crafty Hope, and welcome. It is day 43 of the 100-day project and my not precious project, in which I am pulling things from my stash that I have previously deemed too precious to use and actually using them. So, and the whole idea is not to use 100 items or make 100 things, but it's to every day work on something that includes some of those precious bits that are in my stash and just, use them. So yesterday was 42. I didn't record a video, but I did spend a good deal of time making this, designing and cutting out these pieces on the laser cutter. This was something my husband already had cut up, which is a circle of, I don't know if you can even see it, a circle of acrylic and a wood piece that fits directly under it. And he was like, oh, I thought you'd like that. And yeah, I do. So the precious item I have decided to pull in is, I don't know if you can even see it, it is a butterfly. It has fallen apart a little bit in my working with it, and that's fine because I don't need but a section of one of its wings, and there are 4 wings, so we'll see how that works. It was one that I found, or somebody found and gifted to me. It's not one that somebody went out and took care of themselves, I suppose. So I don't know if you can tell what I have going on here. This is 7 pieces of basically a frame or a box I'm going to build. This is the back plate, and it is going to stack up, well, something like this. Not exactly, but thereabouts. Some of these wood pieces are going to show, so I've decided that what I want to do first, and what all I may get to do today, because it is Easter Sunday and we are about to leave to go visit my family, that what I would like to do is paint it so that when it's lined up, I would prefer to have wood to wood, but I think the big things really that I want to paint are these loops. So that may be all I paint, are the loops and maybe the edge of this one, because when this sits on here, some of that shows through, so I think I'd rather just have it black, and if I have to paint it something else, if I want to paint gold, that black base will be perfect. So that's my idea for right now. That's where I'm starting. These loops I have intended to make swags of rosary chain beads. I hope it will work. It's an idea. If it doesn't, I can redesign it. I use a program called Lightburn to connect to the laser cutter and do all that. So it's kind of like Photoshop or something like that. It's just a design program. So, alright, so like I said, I'm going to start with a little bit of gesso, and I need to start picking out my beads. I haven't completely decided on that. And I think for the actual metal to connect it for the rosary chain, I'm going to, I'll pull it in a little bit. I have a bowl full of findings, just different findings that, like, I had one left and I was like, oh, I want to go put this back. And so I've built up this bowl, and I think maybe I'll use that because it's been too precious in its own sense to, I don't know, to even deal with. So, okay, let me get started on this. I'm going to pull out the pieces that I do think I want to paint. And I'm not going to worry about the back quite yet. So, okay, let's get to it. As I mentioned, I am going to start on this by painting bits and pieces of these frames with black gesso. I'm using the Prima Marketing Heavy Black Gesso. It's just some I have in a stash from like a sample pack of different Prima products or mediums that I have. And you can see I'm using, I had a really tiny brush there, and I started on that other frame, and that's, my hand was like, no, this is for these rings. So I only really want to paint the rings in this because that's what's going to show, as I mentioned, because when I glue this together, I'd like as much of that base wood there as possible, so I'm gluing wood to wood and not wood to paint or wood to gesso. It makes a better connection if you don't have some kind of barrier. So that's just
my technique with that. So I'm going to go through this and just so as many pieces. You can see this is a fairly long video. I did work on this project for something like 6 or 7 or 8 days. Because as I mentioned, I cut these pieces down the day before. I did work on, there's a gap in here, like the day before my last day of this one, I did do something that was not photogenic, and I'll mention that. I am going to break in all of these to kind of tell you, not all of these days, but most of these days, to kind of tell you what my process is, what my thought process is. And as I've mentioned in some of my previous 100-day videos, I like doing that because it kind of gives me a reminder of what I was thinking at the time. We are, I don't know, a month, 2 months out of the 100-day project, a month at least. And I have no idea what I was doing. So you can see that frame even, I just painted around the outside of it. And then I decided I'm going to go ahead and start altering the beads that I have. Now these are some glass pearls that I have in, the color was like champagne or something like that, but they're awful yellow, and I basically decided I don't care for that color. So instead of just getting rid of these beads or letting them linger in my stash, I've decided to color them into something I actually like. So I'm getting them off off that. I'm using, you can see that's a sandwich bag. No, not sandwich, what they called, snack sized bag. And I'm putting the beads that I want to alter in there. And I think I end up having to come back later and alter a few more maybe. I can't remember if I had some left over or if I had to come back and do more. I think I'm going to, it doesn't matter. My big thing here is to show you what it is I did. So what I'm using are alcohol inks. Easy enough. You know, this is a permanent or semi-permanent as long as you don't throw some alcohol on it. And I'm looking through, I knew I wanted some kind of blue in there. So I'm comparing the blues to my, I think that's either like turquoise or deep turquoise or something, but it's a blue I liked. It doesn't really matter when it comes down to it. Put a few drops in there, and I am moving that ink around in that bag, and it does a really great job of coloring those. So, and if I don't like it, I can add a few more drops. You see me trying to look at it. Yep, I'm going to add a few more, 2 or 3 more. Do it again. Move it around. I think after this, I decide to go ahead and add a touch of gold, or that's one of the mixatives. I don't remember if that's the one that's called, I think I've got one that's a mixative and one that's an alloy, and they're both like a gold color. So I'm going to add that in there. It took me a little while to get that. In those mixatives, there is like a little ball bearing in there that you have to kind of let it move the stuff around. So, I don't know why I included so much of this, but I want you to see that I customize this myself. So I'm going to put it out on a paper towel just to kind of look at them, make sure they're drying well. I didn't want to leave them in that plastic bag. But when I get them out, I decided I've got too much of that gold on there, and I'm going to put them back in the plastic bag. And so I've got a scoop I'm going to use instead to scoop them up and get them back in the plastic bag, and then grab a blue again. And I'm not sure if I grab the same blue or a different one. Let's see. And I guess it looks like maybe it's the same one, to kind of bring a little bit of that blue back into the beads, blue beads. And then I will put those back down onto that paper towel. Just kind of getting them all out. That gives them an opportunity to dry, gives me a chance to look at them and decide if they are the color that I want for this. And then I have pulled out that bowl full of miscellaneous findings, and I'm using a mix of different head pins to create little links basically. So it has a simple loop on one end, and I'm trimming it down and making a simple loop on the other. And I will continue to, so here I will pull out, I'm going to open the simple loop on that one end, slide on the link I made, close that, slip on a bead, bend my wire, trim it, and make another simple loop. Now if you want to know how to make a simple loop, it's really pretty easy. You're just going to take round nose pliers and turn it. But if you want a better look at that, I do have a tutorial on making simple loops. I will link that in the upper right corner here. You can go check that out. But y'all, this goes on for hours and hours and days of me making these simple loops to make this rosary style chain until I have a pretty good length of the chain. And I'm going to pull in some jump rings. I have a collection of brass colored you can see here, it's a little thing that's got a bunch of different sizes of jump rings that I'm going to use to connect the chain to the loops that are cut on the loops that are cut on the frame. So this gets really, really fiddly here. As I went on with this project, I got better at connecting these jump rings to the frame, but I didn't get that filmed. So you get to see my fiddly one, but this just shows you that it is possible to do. I just had to learn to open that jump ring wide enough that it fit on there just fine. So for the, you can see at the top of this frame, I've got several of the loops. And so each of those is just going to have one swag of beads, whereas I've got that right side there just has the one loop. And I'm going to use one big loop on that side, I think. See, I start to put this one on. I think I may have changed it out later off camera. It's going to end up with, no, maybe I did just a bunch of loops. I'm trying to remember. Yes, I had one bigger that I am going to connect all of the chains to. I think that's how I did it. Maybe. But I've got two jump rings there, basically. So I'm going to continue this for a while, and I'll show you here in a second that I've got all of the ones for this frame done, and then we'll jump ahead to the next day. So it is the next day. It's April 1st, and which is the 44th day of the 100-day project. Yesterday I got this panel done with my beads and everything. There was some fiddliness for getting some of the spacing right on it, but it's done. So now, and that's the little one. So now I have the one that has 2 loops here and 7 up here that I need to also do. So I'm hoping I have enough beads. If I don't, that's fine. Actually, I need to get more eye pins out, I think, because these are all head pins, so I'm not going to use those. And this is just bits of wire. So I'm going to go find some more eye pins to use for this, and this is just wire. And get to going at it. I may not even record this because it's going to be the exact same process of just making simple loops and connecting them to one another to make the chain, and then connecting the chain to this. So I may show you some of that. We'll see how things progress. So I'm just going to give you a real quick look at this. So there are 4 of those chains connected. I've got another one I'm about to go ahead and connect. And I'm going to let y'all just have a brief look at me connecting this one. I think that's the 4th or 5th one on there. This was a really long process. I sat there and watched other YouTube videos and just made simple loops and lengths of chain. So I'm going to give you a look at all of them on here in just a second. And then we will skip ahead to day, I think, 45. So, I mean, look at that. It's super cool just as it is. All right, we'll get to day 45 here in just a second. Hey y'all, it's day 45 and I am running out of time in this day. So I'm going to quickly do something for a 100-day project, and that is start to alter this little piece of wood that will go in my box, which is in the other room from taking pictures. But
this is the wing that I want to put kind of behind it, like so. And so I was trying to decide what would look best. So I put it against the white here and something black, and I really think I like it. I don't know. Oh, I keep going back and forth. Let me find something white, or at least off white. That's the back of an old find one that I don't know. Oh, all decisions. It's one of those things that it's so precious. What if I mess up? Now I really do like it on the black. I wonder what would it look like maybe on gold. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I think that's what I'm gonna do, is I'm going to gesso this black and then paint gold over the top of it, and we'll see if I like the gold. If I don't like the gold, then I'll paint it black again. Oh, it'll work. All right, so I'm gonna do that, and then we'll see what happens. Yeah.
All right, so on this day, really all I did is paint that black, dry it, and then paint it gold. I think, yeah, there's a second layer of black gesso. And then I'm going to come in with my Modern Masters gold paint that I love and paint it gold. And then will glue on a couple layers of that. I have sped this up so much, all because, well, we'll get to it in a little bit. About why I've sped this up so much, but I did want you to see that, you know, what I did to bring in this item that to me felt so very precious. So I have put a little bit of what is that, matte gel medium down, and that's what I'm going to use to adhere the butterfly wing. But when I do that, it alters the wing. Some of the colors aren't quite right because I put that matte gel on top of it, and it just it messed it up. So yeah, let's get on to the next day, because you can see I just painted and glued things.
I think it's day 46. It is April the 3rd. It's a Wednesday. I am trying to, after the disaster that was this butterfly wing yesterday, I don't know, I feel like I need a win, and I am toying with my friend Terry, suggest maybe going with something besides the butterfly wing, so I'm thinking on it. I am holding on to it. The other one still has not gotten its color back, but it's sealed now. Yeah. I really hate that I did that, but I just wasn't thinking. Anyway. You saw this fabric I had out. I am really toying with the idea. This is all feeling butterfly wing. All the lines, it feels very feminine. So why not bring in some vintage fabric? I'm thinking about making some ruffles with this somehow. It looks like this, I don't know. So I kind of want to use some of this under fabric as kind of the background base, and then layer maybe some of this on top somehow. So, but I might even go ahead, trying to decide if I want to go ahead and paint this or not, or leave it. So decisions. Let's get to it.
So I did decide to go ahead and at least gesso the back panel of this, just because that fabric is super thin and I was afraid the wood grain would show through, and I didn't really want that. I'd rather it be kind of a real basic layer. So I'm not going to show you. This is just painting. I didn't go all the way to the edges on this, simply because, again, I don't want that barrier. I want some of the wood kind of exposed there. So this fabric is it is precious. I got a bag of what seems to be either little girl or doll clothes at an estate sale, and it is all, I don't even know how old it is. It's stuff that's very much incomplete. There are pins in some of it, but I love this piece. The fabric is it rips very easy. It is very delicate. So, but I'm going to try to use it and give it places of honor, like in this assemblage. So you see, I am kind of ripping it down, tearing it down. I'm trying again to not make it go to the edges because I don't want that barrier between the other layers of frame and this and this back panel. And I wasn't sure how much of this lace portion I was going to use. So, and do you see how much of that I'm able to just tear really easy with my hands? I mean, even over there at the bottom, it's so brittle. I thought maybe I would do that whole section in there, but, and I'll go ahead and tell you, but with all of the fringy goodness that I made with the beads, I knew it was going to be just far too busy. I am going to grab my other panels here in just a second and lay them on top and here we go. Lay it on top, take a good look at it to give me an idea. So I'm basically just auditioning all of this to see, how does that look? Do I like it plain? Do I like it with the lace? And and I end up deciding that I don't really care for the lace taking up the whole of the background. I do like the that off-white in the background, but I really like the idea of the lace kind of up at the top, kind of like thinking about, because I've got the swag and all, it all makes me think of curtains, or mostly about like theater curtains is what I kept seeing, that you've got that bit of like, I don't know. I wasn't in the theater. What is it called on the curtains? The bit, and I don't even know, like curtains in your house. The valance, is that what it is? That little extra ruffle that you get across the top of something. So that's what I was thinking about with that lace along the top. So I've decided to go ahead and lay down that plain fabric, that under fabric, and I'm using fluid matte medium, and you can see I'm applying it with my cosmetic thing. I didn't want to put too much on there because I was afraid that would soak completely into the fabric if it was too wet. And you can see as I put it down in a couple of the spots, you can see that fluid medium kind of coming through. So I'm glad I did what I did to scrape it off some, because it worked perfectly. If I had left it too wet, I'm afraid the black would be showing through quite a bit more. So again, I'm going to audition this and think about how I want this to lay, trimming all the excess down. And I have to admit that all in all, this assemblage is a super simple assemblage. There was just really a lot of time taken up with doing the beaded chain, and a lot of time taken up with a lot of time taken up with decision making. Oh, and I can't remember why I decided to go ahead and come in here and paint the rest of this panel. Now this is the second, it's not the top panel in this, but it's the second one. I think I decided that some of these outside edges might show depending on how I glue it down. So it was better for me to go ahead and glue that now before I placed everything together, because I am a sloppy painter. And if I tried to do it once I had everything glued together, I would likely get more gesso everywhere. I think, in fact, so this is gesso that I'm putting down, and I think I'm going to come in with a bit of acrylic paint. It's just some, Martha Stewart acrylic, craft acrylic paint that I'm going to use, because remember that gesso is basically like a primer, and you wouldn't just leave a primer on your wall. You want something that finishes it, the actual paint, and that's what I'm adding, is the actual paint. So some of those other layers, it's fine to have the primer, they're kind of hidden, they're just there to be in the shadows, but this one was actually going to be able to be seen. So I wanted to make sure it had that bit of paint. And I'm even doing the burned edges, because some of them, the wood had gotten chipped a little, so it wasn't the true black that the burned edges usually have. Okay, so the next thing I decided to do was to work on that front panel, And I will tell you, this is the second one I did. I did 2 of these because the first one I did not like, and I came back later and did this one, which you can see I did a couple of different spray inks on it. One of them is Dilutions, and I think the other one may have been a Lindy's. I'm not sure. It was a little bright for the vintage age I wanted to go through for, so I'm using a little bit of some folk art antiquing wax, and you can see I'm applying that and just almost immediately rubbing it off, and that really just helps push back that super brightness of the inks that I had on there. So this is a quick process. I'm using a paper towel to brush it off, and it's going to end up giving me just a really yummy feel for the whole thing. I'm going to go over it. It looks like I'm going over it a couple times, just pushing it back. It's going to work out. It comes back to life a little bit. I liked the blue, but I kind of wanted it to match the same color as the beads somewhat. Now, for some reason, I decided that some of these other panels might show a little bit, and that I ought to go ahead and put some of that paint down on them as well. And I am not actually sure if that's the paint or if that's the gesso, because, yeah, for some reason, I put them in the same little thing in the palette. And so it very well could be the paint, just because it was there and it was out. So I'm going ahead and painting these panels a little bit, and then I am going to put it aside and bring in, what am I going to bring in? That second panel layer. And what was I going to do with it? I decided, that's why, well, I put the dark paint down. I guess I decided to go ahead and put the gold because I didn't want the black showing through. I wanted this to feel just a little bit more fancy. I had those little touches of gold on the beads, as well as the mixed metallics in the head pins, eye pins. Oh, did I say head pins before? They're eye pins. I used eye pins. Eye pins have like a hole in them. Head pins have a head on them. They're flat. Okay, so I'm using that Modern Masters acrylic paint. Again, the same thing I used for the butterfly wing base. But yeah, I'm just getting some gold down. I don't know why I included all of this for y'all to see, because you understand how paint works. I'm doing what I can not to get too much of it on the edges, but if a little bit is on there at this point, I was okay with it. It's going to be on the edges. It's not important when it comes to it in this. I just don't want anything to look too sloppy. All right, jumping ahead, that was painted, and now I've got some wood glue I'm putting down on a piece of scrap paper, and I have this silicone glue spreading brush. Of course, I didn't clean it out well. And I am picking up the glue from that scrap piece of paper and putting it on to the back frame. So I've got that back panel there, and you can see I'm not putting it on that back panel. I'm putting it on the piece that's going to connect to it, because that way I'm putting glue exactly where it needs to go and not randomly, because once you put wood glue down, you do need to clean it up. For the most part, it does dry clear, but there is a little bit of yellowing with it. So you'll see, yeah, there's me trying to wipe it with my hand. I will break out a paper towel and wipe it. I think it may be on or off camera. I'll pull out even a toothpick and pull out some of the glue. Now, I will be doing more gluing as we go to the following day, but you can see I'm clamping this together using some clothespins, and I'm going to leave it to dry overnight, and we will come back here with the next day in just a second.
All right, y'all, it's day 47. It's still morning time. Trying to get my day kind of going, and I thought I'd go ahead and work on my 100-day project first thing instead of waiting till the end of the day. How about that? I really think today is going to be just about gluing some of these layers on. I don't think I'd mentioned that I had this antique fabric. I did back here with some of it, but I want to put this like across the top in one of these layers. So what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to take off my clothespin clamps. I may have to go get some of my husband's clamps to do some of this, simply because the clothespins aren't going to be like thick enough to get all of these layers. But what's the next layer? I think it's this one. And so I'm going to slowly just build up these layers. Like I said, I may go grab some clamps from him. I may see if I've got some around here, but 'cause I don't really want to do anything that's going to break this. Because the thing is, and I haven't decided if I'm going to use that one of the glass jars or if I'm going to use my butterfly wing or both, even, because I thought maybe I could do the butterfly wing like there, even with one of the glass jars there. I don't know yet. That may be overkill, especially if I'm going to add this here, which I'll show you, looks a bit like that, and I really like it. I really like it. It kind of hides some of the workings up there. I'm also probably going to go ahead and glue the front frame. Ooh, why is that hard? To here, and leave some of this off until I'm ready to assemble it all. But y'all, that's kind of what I think I'm going for. How cute is that? I mean, I could leave that there and just put like a word or something, but see how I've got a gap where the space here, and I thought maybe that could be perfect for this wing. And then the little jar, but I haven't figured out what I'm going to put in the jar yet, so I'm thinking it could be just glitter. I mean, honestly, and that would use up some of the glitter I have rather than putting it in the waste stream. So yeah, okay, I'm thinking I'm going to start gluing and we'll see what happens.
And gluing is exactly what I did on this day. Now, I realize now that I did not mention at all anything about the glass jars to y'all previously. At some point, I made a decision that I really wanted something light and fresh and clear kind of in this because of all the busyness. And I found that I have quite the collection of little glass jars, and maybe that would be a really beautiful thing to add to this. I am going to be adding a glass jar. I'll admit that the butterfly wing is not getting added. It just did not feel right in the end. I may get to that in a little bit, but so I've sped up this video quite a bit because it is a lot of repeating. Now, instead of getting my husband's clamps, you can see I turned that upside down and put a bunch of weights on it and then came back later. So this was a process. Well, you can see here, I decided to go ahead and work on the front. So I've got the back panel there on the right and the front panels here on the front. And I'm doing what I can to, yeah, you can see I put glue kind of everywhere. So now I've got to come in and wipe it all up with my paper towel. So once all that was dry, I'm coming back in with more gluing, putting in yet another panel here to glue it down, and I'm going to do the same thing with it to dry it. Once I get it together, I will wipe everything up and then turn it upside down and weigh it down. Yep, and yeah, here's another one. And I did this over and over, and I tried to make sure each panel was dry before I added another one. So this was, I wanted to just give y'all a peek at this process. I didn't think it was important that you see the entire drying time or the entire applications or even the entire wiping down process because you get it. I know you get it. Okay, so I wanted to show you, I took those front two panels and took them outside and sprayed them with a semi-gloss sealer and decided that this bit of lace was going to go right behind this front panel. I wanted it as forward as I could and to cover up kind of the loops that I had on the attached, up there for the bead swags. So I'm taking a little bit of time to figure out how much of that decorative lace I want showing, and I'm finally going to trim it down, and then I will use Fabri-Tac to attach it, because of course I'm using fabric and I really hate putting a barrier between these things, but in order to yeah, for that accent I kind of needed it. So I'm going to put Fabri-Tac directly on to my wood frame there, and then add my lace, and I will trim it down as best as I can because I don't want that excess kind of poking up there. So, and I think once I got this trimmed and done, that's all I did on this particular day, simply because really, y'all, that gluing took ages and ages to give me time to dry between them. So it was a really good thing I started first thing in the morning. Now I will tell you, I'm going to leave that white bit exposed up there once I trim it, but we're going to come in, and I think it's going to be the last day here for this project.
Hey y'all, it is day 49 of the 100-day project. So I'm not going to do much today. It's Saturday. We've had a long day, and I just need to really kind of finish this box. So I've been trying to figure out what to do. I need to glue this down, obviously, and then add whatever my focal is going to be. Now, I thought maybe I was going to use this bottle. You know, I've been messing with the butterfly wing. I don't think it's going to make it in there, but I have it maybe for another project. And I did break out my not precious bottles, but I also picked up a couple yesterday at an estate sale. And I think I'm going to use one of them. So I've got this little bottle, and keep going back and forth about what I would put in it. And I think what I'm going to do is I've run outside and picked some flowers from my yard. And this is tiny, but I think it could make a really neat, just little flower bud vase or something. So I'm going to keep it simple. I think, oh, well, I keep like waffling, and I don't like waffling. So I'm going to at least glue this down. And then, oh, and if you're wondering where day 48 went, I did a junk journal page instead yesterday because this had to be sprayed again. So, oh, I don't want to waffle anymore, y'all. So I'm trying to figure out just what I'm going to do. Let me look again at this one. The opening is a little bit wider. Alright, I'm going to make some decisions.
And I did make a decision on using that more simple jar as opposed to the fancy one. We've got plenty enough going on with the beads, with the lace, with the bit of, with the front being as decorative as it is. So I am adding, oh, look at that, y'all. I'm adding so much wood glue to the front of this, mostly because I was concerned about how well some of that would adhere to that lace. And I'm less concerned about if some of that glue gets onto the back of that like framed panel. My head is going to get in this a little bit as I'm trying to line everything up. And I left that to dry. Again, I turned it up, I cleaned it, I turned it upside down, and left it to dry. And now I am coming in with that glass jar I've decided on, which is probably a little perfume bottle. I'm cleaning it a bit with some, not that it matters because I'm about to put my fingers all over it, but it just made me feel better. That's part vinegar, part water. It's my favorite easy glass cleaner for the craft room. And I'm going to clean it and then basically just grab some E6000. I'm figuring out where I want it. And I can see that bit. You know, I think I came back later before I put that in the shop and did clean up some of that gold paint that's on the top of all of that before, because this assemblage is for sale over at Hello Gallery in downtown Fairhope. So I did clean it up a bit before I did that. I added a hanger on the back. And yeah, it's pretty sweet. I've got some dried flowers in it because I didn't think real flowers. You'll see the real flowers here in a second, but I just didn't think they would go well in there. All right, so there is my E6000. I'm putting on the bottom of this little vase. and I'm going to fiddle with it just a little bit as I try to figure out. And I was mostly concerned about the back of that little vase not getting fingerprints on it, because it's going to be really hard to get to clean it once I get it in there. And you can see I've got a little bit of cardboard underneath this to make sure this sits straight up and down while it dries, because I didn't want that little vase to move. And I'll add that flour in just a second, and then y'all, that's gonna be it. This was a really long project for how simple and beautiful it ended up being. I'm going to give you a couple more looks at this. The photos are a little weird because I think I took them straight off of Instagram to put in here. But if you have any questions, definitely let me know. And if you're interested in buying a kit that has all of these frames and all that for stacking to do your own assemblage shadow box like this, let me know. I can definitely cut out another one on the laser cutter for you. So give me a shout and let me know about that. And I guess that's everything. Come back and see what else crafty I've got going on. And thanks so much for watching. I'll see y'all later. Bye.